the people that he works with.
He's worked with
But
some
now
of the
he's
biggest
working with
hitters,
like
right?
Van Morrison and Dr. John, Van Morrison. He's working with some incredible artists.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say, you and Billy as well, you talked about how well Bob knows you guys. Well, you and Billy are, an enduring songwriting partnership. What if you look at some of the big enduring songwriting partnerships in the world, people think Jagger Richards and stuff, but when they go out and do their own stuff, it's okay, but it doesn't have that same dynamic. How does that dynamic work for you and Billy?
It's chemistry. There's an alchemy there. We can't really pull it apart. It's more like just, allow it to happen, allow it to come forward, and, finding an environment that's conducive to that. That's why Bob's great. He creates a great environment so that the songs can be fully realized. And he's an excellent, one thing with Bob that a lot of people don't know about is he's an excellent engineer, which the art of engineering, rock music, is a lost art. The ability to mic a drum kit. It's a lost art, as we're working more with plugins. That technical aspect of engineering is like knowing a room, knowing how to mic a room, knowing how to use a room to create certain sound, certain atmosphere. He's a savant with guitars. He has an incredible collection of amplifiers and guitars himself that he's acquired over decades that all have a certain, juju, shall we say. And he brings them in the studio. And when he walks in the studio, he walks in with, decades of experience. This man's made some of the most, iconic records, late 20th century, 21st century. So there's very, very few guys around like that anymore who can actually do it all.
Your sound has evolved so much over the years and you've done so many different things rather than just doing the one thing, and how that evolution happens for you.
By staying inquisitive, by being open to other influences. For example, working with Rick Rubin was because of the Beastie Boys. It wasn't because of rock. It was because of hip-hop. It was because of the paradigm shift in music. We came out postmodern. We came out postmodern scene, postmodern, post-punk scene. We kind of discovered rock music or blues-based hard rock music through a group of bands that had been pretty much blacklisted because of punk rock, saying that they were kind of verbose but we were listening to with kind of new eyes and new ears, I should say. We were, kids listening to like early Led Zeppelin records, and for me they were just primal. There was a primal quality in that music that was really not happening too much in postmodern, which was really coming from the head. We were really moved by guttural music that was really coming from a real primal place, and I think that's something that we became students of. Discovering that, which led to blues, which led to other influences. Hip hop. I grew up in Canada, so I grew up in North America. So I already had a lot of different influences. So I was growing up with like R&B and disco and blues. I was watching African American music. As a kid growing up, as a teen growing up in North America, I was exposed to North American music, influenced by Bowie. Maybe not so much in what he did in terms of, say, for example, the Berlin period as an individual, but certainly in terms of the atmospheres and you bring this all into the room. Principally we're working around, Billy has a certain space that he fills. He's usually playing Gretsch or a Les Paul through, amplifiers that he's found a tone that really works, and it's quite broad. Whether he's playing the Gretsch or the Les Paul, they're two completely different guitars and they create different atmospheres. And I think that's something that Colt has. There is light and shade, there is texture, there's subtext. We don't have one tonality. Like the Colt doesn't have like 2 or 3 gear changes, but like 7. That comes through. This is about having a passion for it. This is just being inquisitive, and it's like, what if we do this? What if we try that? I'm really studying it and getting it right. So in Hidden City, there's a lot of work gone into that record. If it's not good enough, we're kind of like, okay, we're going to rip this apart. Let's start from the beginning again.
Talk us a bit through Hidden City. I know that it's the culmination of a trilogy of records, and this is the story of rebirth for one of another term. But talk us through how this trilogy has worked and what the seed of this idea was, where it came from, and where you are now.
There was no real kind of we didn't really set out consciously to create a trilogy of records. It was more deep into this record where it became kind of apparent that we'd kind of gone full circle. Our manager had commented this is like a trilogy of records. It's a body of work you can relate to each other. These 3 albums, Born Into This, Choice of Weapon, and Hidden City, all have a certain narrative flow that they work well together. Probably because we made them on a roll. I guess from the beginning, Born Into This came after the band had got back together again, after being, hiatus for about 4 years, where I went off and worked with Manzarek and Krieger. We jumped straight in with Youth, who's produced everybody from Primal Scream to Pink Floyd, played bass in Killing Joke. And we made a record I think we wrote that record in 21 days, and then we recorded it in 15. And that was from nothing, that was from scratch. So it was a very impulsive record, instinctive, not really polished, not really evolved. Songs weren't fully realized. Their second record, we spent a little bit more time with it with Chris Goss. Chris Goss kind of came in and helped us to refine. It's almost like we'd learned a lot of things, and he helped us to kind of rediscover ourselves, where we're at that particular point. Chris puts on a guitar, he stands in the room, and Chris is somebody who really creates an atmosphere when he walks in the room. A different style of guitar player than Bob Rock, more of a guru figure, a Buddha, less of an engineer, more of a player. So we kind of began to explore some of the textures with Chris. And then Bob is more of an all-round producer, engineer. From the engineering standpoint, Bob was very, very important. Bob came in and started to engineer that record, Choice of Weapon, and engineer, obviously from the beginning, Hidden City. So it's kind of hard to objectify yourself and Wikipedia yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just, you know what? Just go with the heart. That's it. Just turn up, show up. It just evolves. I mean, ultimately, I can say whatever in this interview. It's like, put the record on and go listen to it. It's like, if you connect with it, incredible. Where it really comes down is live, with a transition in live environment. These songs from Hidden City. I mean, we stood under a lightning storm with rain pelting in at an angle in front of 60,000 GNR fans and played Deeply Ordered Chaos and cleaned the floor. We wiped the floor with it. It was like it was done after that song. It was a moment. It was an incredible moment. And we weren't relying on nostalgia. It was a song that was written in the moment of its time, in this moment. I think even if people weren't familiar with the song, they certainly got the sentiment of it, the impact of it. And trends come, trends go. We know this. We've been around long enough to see the trends. And it doesn't matter with technology. It doesn't matter. There's still trends come and go. It's incredible. See artists rise, be the hottest thing, and then eviscerate, gone. We're talking 10 studio albums here.
All right, Ian. Now, well, listen,
Yes,
thanks
sir.
very much for your time and welcome to New Zealand again. I just want to, say to you that you are one of the great rock voices, and you're somebody whose work I've really appreciated over the years.
Thank you, brother.
As a young rock fan, I discovered Electric, and then I went backwards from there, and then embraced Sonic Temple. So, and you, for me, are one of the great rock voices. When you first opened your mouth, and that came out, was that just a purely, like you've said, is that just an instinctual thing? Is that just something that you were born with?
Instinct. I used to stand in the street and shout. I don't know why, but kids in my neighborhood used to always be shouting. There's always be like a lot of ruckus going on. I grew up in Glasgow in Merseyside. It was a place where kids used to play in the street, throw stones, get chased by dogs, shout. It was like, it was an activity that appealed to me. I don't know why. I have no idea. There'd always be shouting or getting shouted at. Just chaos, working class UK, and it was just the way it was. It was very un-PC, Children were hit. You go through that working class kind of upbringing in the UK, and it prepares you for life. I was a good kid. I was like a Cub Scout, like Jim Morrison was a Cub Scout.
Yeah.
I was interested in nice esoteric things. I like stamps. I was interested in art. I love David Bowie. I used to go out the street and used to get into fights because, I was into Bowie. Other kids would think you're a bit soft and they'd find out otherwise. But baptism of fire.
Jim Morrison, David Bowie, those are two pretty good role models to have when it comes to being a vocalist, my friend.
Yeah, spent time with Manzarek and Krieger, certainly in that space. But when we opened for Bowie in '87, that was the first time that I'd met somebody of his status, and his aura, his presence was incredible, and he was just so grounded, so gracious, sincerely interested in who I was and what I had to say, and the music I was interested in. That was really, felt ordained in some way, and that was a beautiful, beautiful meeting, and I got to meet him several times after that. But like I've said many times, he was my North Star, and he still is.
May have been the world's North Star because everything seems to have gone to custard since he left.
No, it goes around like this every now and again. Yeah. Nature has a plan.
Good
Humans
stuff, Ian.
Don't. I mean, look at New Zealand. New Zealand's incredible. Super nature here. It's an incredible country. You guys are living. I can tell you, you guys have a very well, it's not a well-kept secret, but it's so beautiful. And I know New Zealand's not without its struggles and tribulations, but when you travel through Europe, United States, you see entire cities that have closed down, like Detroit, the home of Motown. You see this with your own eyes. I mean, that goes into the music, that goes into the record, that goes into the subtext of the record as well. We go through these environments. It's not lost on us. We just keep doing what we do.
Well, you're doing it very well, sir, and we hope you keep doing it. And
Thank you,
welcome to New Zealand, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday night at the Power Station in Auckland.
Thank you.